It's Thursday, which means those 2 days of not having football on TV are over. The only problem is we're back to having a crummy Thursday night game, or at least one that has big names, so it'll have a big draw, but it feels like a crummy Thursday night game. I mean, outside of the fact that the Niners might well be the best team in the National Football League, and the Brock Purdy story is amazing. It starts at 4:30 on the West Coast, 5 o'clock on the West Coast. That's suboptimal. Where are all the fans? Can you get to a game at 5 o'clock? When, by the way, it's not really close to San Francisco. Yeah, 45 minutes from San Francisco. And I understand that their fans don't come from necessarily San Francisco, from Santa Clara, it's right there, San Jose or whatever. But it's at 5 o'clock in San Francisco. That's when the game is. Oh, yeah, and no Saquon Barkley. And I don't know if the Giants are any good anyway. And they've stayed out in the West Coast, right? Because they just played Arizona and had to have a comeback to beat, in the conversation, the worst team in the National Football League. There's a reason this line is 10.5 and the total is 43.5. This is not going to be a shootout. It's going to be a bloodletting. And I guess it'll give credence to the value of Saquon Barkley, because with Barkley not playing, it's just left to Daniel Jones, and that feels like it's going to be a struggle. But this is one of those where we're only in week 3 and we already have a game that's a standalone game that you're like, yeah. So we got Thursday Night Football. I feel like this week is about a couple of teams in the NFL getting off the schneid to save their season, and about college football's ranked team matchups, right? Penn State, Iowa, Alabama, Ole Miss, Oregon, Colorado. Who would have thought that was going to be a big game at this point in time when the season kicked off? Wazoo, Oregon State. Yes, that's a big game. Notre Dame taking on Ohio State. You got ranked teams, really good games across the board. And then you have some other teams, Oklahoma on the road, Cincinnati's maiden voyage into the Big 12, BYU's first Big 12 game as they take on Kansas on the road after beating Arkansas on the road last week. And then in the NFL, you have the Chargers at Minnesota, both winless teams. Somebody's coming out 0-3. And the Bengals got to win a game eventually, right? They don't play till later in the week. You have teams that people thought could compete for a Super Bowl that 2 weeks in have yet to win a football game. I feel like normally Thursday is like, yeah, let's go. Or it has been the last two. This one's like, having trouble getting ready, getting fired up for tonight's game. The Bears day yesterday was a lot like, if you ever had one of those days, you're like, you woke up late, you had your coffee, but you forgot to turn your coffee maker on, so you turn it on late, you're running out the door, then you grab your coffee, it burns your tongue, you spill it on your shirt, you got a meeting with the boss, maybe you went to the wrong location, you can't find a parking spot, then somebody dings your car while you're at your parking spot, you forgot to bring your snack, to get something for lunch, you go out to get lunch, there's nowhere to park, nowhere to go, then you get home and your dog got out, it's one of that was the Bears' day yesterday. They're 0-2. Their left tackle was put on IR. Their quarterback, he didn't blame coaching, but it was the first word out of his mouth when they asked him why he was playing like a robot. He said, coaching, and then he went into a long answer. Then he had his own kind of additional walk it back sort of clarification press conference. And then their defensive coordinator, who no one knew where he was, resigned, and there's rumors that there were potentially multiple FBI raids, one that has been disputed, or one that said not to occur at Hallis Hall, which is where the Bears actually practice. They had themselves a day. That's a full day. And they get to play the Kansas City Chiefs on Sunday. It's a full day. But the thing I wanted to start with was, did you guys see what Minkah Fitzpatrick said about the hit that he had that ended the season of Nick Chubb? And Look, I hope Nick Chubb comes back and he's anywhere near what he has been. But there's a world in which that's the last we see of Nick Chubb as a productive running back in the NFL. Is that fair? It's not his first knee injury. He had one in college. And that was a really gruesome one. And again, this is not me hoping for Nick Chubb to never play high quality or even play football again. It's just the reality of the position, the sport, and the severity of that injury. Fair? Okay. Is that fair? So here's what Minkah Fitzpatrick said. And I think, I actually think, don't shame fans, guys on social media, even broadcasters, guys that played. I think shame on them because there have been some that said that's a dirty hit. And here's Minkah, and I thought this was a great response. He told this to Brooke Pryor of ESPN.com. I'm a guy that's a competitor. It's going to go out there and play the game. I'm chippy, I'm edgy, and of course I'm chippy, I'm edgy, but I'm not a dirty player. I'm not going to sit here and defend my character. I know the type of player I am. Chubb knows the type of player I am. I played against him for the past 5 years, 2 times a year. I love competing against him. He brings out the best of me. I bring out the best of him. Do we really think that's the case? That Nick Chubb's sitting there going, it's not playing against the Steelers. It's playing against Minkah Fitzpatrick. All right, whatever. No chance that I would even try and purposely injure somebody. Always. It's an unfortunate event. You make the decisions within milliseconds, and you can't really control what happens after you choose to make your decision. I already chose to go low. Somebody got on his back while I was going low, and what happened. There's nothing really I would do differently. It's very unfortunate. Chubb's a great player. He makes the game a lot better when he's playing. He also went on at some point later in time to say, look, you can't go in high against Nick Chubb. He'll just run you over, which is accurate. And I think there's just a reality to playing the game, coaching the game. I even think it's a lot like the Sean McVay thing, where we think everything has to be negative. Everything has to be a conspiracy. Everything, no, that's the whole idea of these conspiracy things is they're so remote. They happen so seldom, but we keep chasing them. We keep chasing them. I mean, the best example was it last week or this week? I'm getting my weeks confused, where they had the press conference in Mexico where the alien skeleton was found. And then they did an MRI and they did an X-ray, and they're like, yeah, basically they took parts of other skeletons, and this is a complete and utter fraud. A complete and utter fraud. You think if this skeleton existed, that it would be in some random press conference in Mexico that this, is that really how you think? If there were really skeletons of a UFO, of an alien creature, you think that's where we would find it? It's like Sean McVay. You really think that Sean McVay, who's won a Super Bowl, probably going to be in the Pro Football Hall of Fame, whenever he gets done coaching, he's going to go into broadcasting, right? That's his path. He's the next Gruden. Anybody dispute that? Do you think that he's, for 1 second, going to risk that because he's like, oh, what's the line? 7.5. I'm going to risk everything I have just to kick a field goal at the end of the game because F them Niners fans who bet on the Niners at 7 and a hook. And the same thing goes to Minkah Fitzpatrick. You think Minkah Fitzpatrick's sitting there going here comes Nick Chubb. He's going through a hole. It's around the goal line. I'm going to try and hurt him. Come on, man. If you want to say he bailed out because he didn't actually try and tackle low and see the ball and used his body instead, that's fair. And that's a little dirty. Right? Just throwing your body at somebody's legs instead of actually tackling. That's a fair way to point out, hey, there's one thing to go low and tackle. There's a whole other thing to just throw your body out there where you can't see what else is happening. That would be fair. But the idea that, he's trying to take him out. Really? I think back to the David Blatt comments. You guys remember when David Blatt was the head coach of the Cleveland Cavaliers? And he got crucified for saying that being a head coach in the NBA was like being a pilot. And he's like, you're just making hundreds and thousands of decisions. Like, people are like, oh, get over yourself. No, that's actually exactly how it is. Do I stand up? Do I sit down? Do I coach this player? Or do I let him go? Do I sub or do I not sub? Who do I sit next to? Do I talk to those assistants? Do I call a play? When they miss a shot, do I say something about it? Oh, there's an out-of-bounds play. What out-of-bounds play do we run? What personnel do we have? What personnel do they have on? There's a lot of stuff going on there, and it's not like the NFL where you have one guy doing the offense, one guy doing the defense, you're kind of the bridge, one guy doing special teams. You can have that, but there's really only one voice coming from the sidelines. It's just the realities of the speed of sport and the decisions that are made that we get to this thing where everything's a conspiracy. I mean, and forgive me because I'm probably on X more than I should. And when I say X, I don't mean drug X. Have we established that that's a lot confusing? Are you on X? Yeah, I'm on X. No, not ecstasy. I'm actually on what used to be Twitter called X. But there are people that pop up now that I guess Obama's chef died in like a paddle boat incident. Well, that's got to be a conspiracy. And this happened in this country, and that's got to be like conspiracies are so remote, but we insist on chasing them, and we think everything is a conspiracy. Everyone is out to get everyone else. And it just gets incredibly tiresome, doesn't it? So to review, tonight's game, going to be crummy. Celebration of the Niners. The Niners don't have a bad fan base. It's at 5 o'clock local time. And oh yeah, by the way, they're going to blow out the Giants because Saquon Barkley's not playing. And I'm not sure the Giants are any good anyway.